Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas. I'm here again with two spiritual guides next to me. One of them is called Geert, the second one is Mike. I'm happy again because today we're going to talk about the reality and the question what it is and how we can define that and how can we describe reality. And I think we need to focus on this physical reality because this is something what seems to be reality to us. And I'm curious how you perceive this reality, what do you think it is? And maybe later on we can say also something about why we are in this reality. But first let's start with Geert. Hello, sir.
Reality. You have... I think we have lots of reality possibilities, and in my life, at school you learn that reality to make it in a small way of looking at it, and I think there are lots of possibilities in the reality, and I've always been curious about look at reality in a different way. And what it is, the answer I still haven't got. So that's the difficulty with it, but what is the problem of it? It's always, you have to be patient to look at the reality, and when does it try to tell you what it is? And the simple thing is always when you fall on the ground and you endure yourself. You think, what is happening then in that moment when you hurt yourself? And the blood comes, here I have a wound this week. What happens then? And it seems to push you to take serious. This is the iron thing I met on a show, but it pushes you to think it's serious. But maybe you only take yourself, the pain you have, maybe only that thing you take serious. So that's a difficult thing. And then when I, as a teacher, I do lots of physical lesson. So you meet the atom model, and I always, I try to be sure of what is the atom model of reality, and I think it's not the reality, because in my soul I experience other things of reality. So the pain has nothing to do with atoms for me. That's just my feeling about meeting reality and not reality himself. So it's more a question for me, what is reality? And there are lots of interesting things to look at, but what it is, it's difficult for me.
It's difficult for everybody, actually. Even top experts haven't
No.
decided,
No.
haven't concluded what reality is. We can understand physical reality in terms of atoms and particles and energy that have a relationship with each other. But that's only our way of understanding it, because we're able to see things that we look under microscopes. We find cells, and we find what we call not cells, particles anyway, that make up the cells, and we can split them, do experiments, and find smaller particles and so forth. So that becomes our defining physical reality. Now, if we're going to be talking about physical reality, maybe we confine ourselves to particles, because that is the defining story. That's boring as far as I'm concerned, because I don't believe in it anyway. I know there's another reality. There is a spiritual reality. There is even if you go into the physics deep enough, even the scientists are saying now, if you can't, at one point you can't split it anymore, that particle, and it ends up as being nothing. And that's where they stop, because they can't go beyond nothing. And so, where does the particle come from? Where does the particle begin? And you can use it as a sort of metaphor, a building block.
The particle.
The particle, yeah, of course. You can use it, and for all intents and purposes, it serves well in this world. You can
make atom bombs with it.
You can make atom bombs, you can make cars, you can make all sorts of things. And
telephones.
We have our experience in this. We have our experience in the physical. And it gives us experiences that we wouldn't be able to have if we weren't physical. Like cutting your hand or burning your hand with an iron. It's that sort of thing. But even that experience, I was reminded when you were talking about that conversation I had with my brother about pain. And is it your hand that's hurting? You feel the pain there, but the pain's not there.
No.
The pain is in your head. It's just a message from there to your head. So pain is not real in that place that hurts. So what does that tell you about particles? You're just surely that particles would hurt. So you are connected in a way to that, to you can't then believe in that pain. It's something that's created in your head as a message, and it's interpreted. So the stimulation that goes from there, the message that goes to there, is still only simulated or interpreted in your brain to say pain, which is a label. This is not nice, or this hurts. This is another label. And it's same with pleasure or anything. So you don't actually feel anything. It's just an interpretation in your head. And same with looking. You don't actually see with your eyes. I don't see you. I see. I get information through my eyes, and my head turns, or my mind turns it into you. Same with sound. So even when you're talking particles and physical reality, we're not just talking one thing. It doesn't exist just out of particles. It's an interpretation of what possible particles might be doing. But I don't believe in particles. So then we go into a completely different conversation. But it's your turn. What do you believe?
Yeah,
or what can you say? What can you add?
I see it quite similar to what you said, what you both said, but as always, I look at it a bit from more technical point of view. And this technical point of view tells me that if we are on a position to build robots, computers, or androids, so computer building in the physical body, which is very physical to us because we build it with those particles which we're talking about here. And those bodies can move and can do some exercises or some tasks which we ask them to do. That gives me the impression that most likely we are such androids in this physical reality. We are this physical body, which is not physical as we create the robot's arm, which is made of metal in most of the cases, or carbon or other titanium. But we are done from the biological particles, and this body, or let's say this way, when you come to this world, what happens? The egg gets connected with the one cell of your sperm, right? To me, it's just a bit or portion, or actually not a bit, but it's a huge portion of information which goes inside the egg, which is also equipped with the program, and this program basically mix each other and create a creature. You've got the coded information what's gonna come out. And if you really look deep, you can see even how you're going to look like when you're 20 or 40 or 60 years old. Of course, there are some external factors like wind, rain, or other things which can, make you older or faster or slower. But some view on yourself in the future can be taken out of this code, basically. And the same goes for the program which we create as human beings in the computers. So I look at it from that perspective. And when you say about the pain or pleasure, all those aspects are built-in sub-programs, in my view again, which are just used for our huge suit to control itself, to control itself in terms of not to disintegrate. So basically, if your sensors are off, if they don't work, and we have such a cases, medical cases of people who don't feel pain at all, they can just put a hand in the cold water and they can keep it for hours over there. What does it mean? This person still is alive, but it might die very quickly if it's exposed to those high temperatures or low temperatures. So that's why you've got those sensors built in every single cell, or majority of them, which send signals to our central nervous system, and this system is decoding this information and presenting it to you yourself, whoever we are, because that's another question about reality, like even who are we in those bodies? Is it just the body, or there's something else apart from that? So is this only physical, or maybe there's some different reality, like you mentioned just a moment ago, which is not visible here, but it's part of external reality, maybe which is actually main reality, and this is the different reality which we are currently living in. So my vision is relatively simple. If I compare it this way, then I see ourselves as massively advanced creatures, created not the way that like we do it, like in the series mode system, like we create Tesla cars like one by one, 60 of them every single minute or an hour or whatever. But we do like, arm, door, steering wheel. We are built in a different way. Whoever created us in the way that we reproduce ourselves based on the code built in those small...
But also the difference between every car comes out of the same factory. A Tesla car does not give birth to another Tesla car.
Yeah.
So self-replicating machines, you could say.
Yeah.
But if you want to use the machine analogy.
Yeah. So this is my analogy,
Yeah.
yes.
So your vision depends on the image of the technical aspects. The last 150 years, we developed lots of technical instruments, and now your thought gives you the image of a computer programmed with arithmetic sort of information, codes called. But before, if you had lived 200 years ago, it wouldn't be possible to have that's the way of looking. And it depends on the senses. That's the first thing. So we have the senses. So if you... Well, how many senses do you have?
Experience reality at all, do you?
No.
If you can't touch, can't see, can't hear, can't
so
taste,
you have
can't
the
smell,
sense. The senses give
you're floating in a void, and you can't even talk about it. You can't
Correct.
even experience it. You can't
Correct.
even, because you've never learned to. You can't even express your thoughts because you can't think.
No.
And that's where this analogy comes from. That's why I compare those two, our reality to the reality which we create ourselves. It's very similar, to be honest.
But the senses are the eyes, ears, how you call it, the taste,
The touch sense.
Touch. Yeah.
Touch sense.
Touch. So you have maybe 5 senses, but the other thing what I see in this talking about reality is the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a sense for a thought too? Because we recognize thoughts, but I think it's the thing of particles is a thought. It's not reality. I don't see particles, so it's from view of senses. It's nonsense. But we have made a thought some sort of thought. We can do arithmetic exercises with it, and then we forget that the thought is not reality. Because we think now particles are real, but it's only a thought. So, and they're maybe 600 before Christ. Democritus started with the thought of particles, but later they told Aristotle and Plato said, well, it's nonsense. This guy is thinking about, and later it comes back the particle thing, but it's a thought. And what's the science doesn't speak about what is the thought, what material is thought or isn't it material. So there we have a difficulty.
That's the dividing line. What
difficulty.
Most physics deals with the physical. That's it. What we call the physical. So science, which is all the different sciences, basically they're based in some kind of physical world, physical storyline.
So let's say classical
Apart from something that's
classical.
more abstract, like mathematics, which is also not physical, but that creates a world, an understanding of the world in a different way. Most the physical sciences deal in a reality storyline that says it's built up from atoms and smaller particles, and that's it. Quantum physics goes a lot further than that. It takes it out. It says, well, this isn't right either, but they're not ready, or mankind is not ready to accept that en masse. And the only thing you come to in the end is something that is immaterial, yet still exists. And the trouble with that is it's very difficult to prove it exists objectively.
Yeah.
You can experience it subjectively, and even many people can experience the same thing, so their stories can actually prove another story or support it, but it's still subjective. So in the end, maybe reality is basically, if you're coming down to basics, it's just experience, because outside of our own experience we can't really know, and the only thing we have is experience. And so we experience particles, but it doesn't say particles are true. We experience physical matter.
But do you experience particles?
Well,
Did
no,
you?
not
Did you?
particles. No, that's right. I don't experience atoms either. I mean, I experience more rough matter, so rough matter, heavy matter. I experience myself, and I experience the table.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't say the table experience, and it doesn't also say that I believe in that experience. I just know it's an experience, and I can accept it for what it is, regardless of whether scientists say that it's made up of particles. I would have a great argument with them about that. But it's an expression in particle form, talking small particles now, which make up atoms, blah 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 blah, which create physical matter. It's in reality in this world it's just a physical representation of what true reality is, and the trouble is we can't get to what true reality is.
But don't you
So we
think
trust
that-
the arithmetic.
Where do you take the discussion? Do you take it? Here's a box. This is what we call physical reality. And it's made up of atoms and matter. And it's in a bigger box that we can call immaterial reality, and that's in a bigger box that we can't even see because that's outside our scope to understand. So, are we going to discuss reality in that little box? Or are we going to go out of it? It's very difficult not to go out of it if that's where your interest lies.
Yeah, but the thing is, thought is not considered as particles. So is
exactly,
thought not a reality? So you have the subjective, objective, but that's a thought.
I'm not sure if I can agree, to be honest.
A thought is not about particles.
Yeah, Just look at it again from technology point of view.
Yeah.
What is thought? Thought is the information. This information is, we don't know. Is it created in our head? We don't know. That's another subject which we'll perhaps will discuss in the future. But let's assume that we've got brain, and let's assume that there's nothing else but just brain, physical reality. And let's assume that all thoughts are created in your brain. The brain is a massively advanced computer in the physical reality. And this massively advanced computer creates thoughts. Thoughts are just is information. What is information? In order to transfer or transmit information, you need to have some physical layer. And this physical layer is either chemical signal or electrical signal or whatever else. But still, you need a particle in order to transfer this information from A to B. So I tend to say that in the physical reality, you still need particle in order to do anything. And that's why it's called physical. But we're touching non-physical reality, and we're talking about the fact that perhaps we are not only physical. And as I know you guys, I'm pretty sure that you confirm that it's not only about the physical world. What's behind this physical world, we still don't know. We're trying to talk about it even now and touch it and somehow investigate. But I think that from physical layer, from physical point of view, we still, even thought is part of the matter. It's still physical, even thought.
But it's not. You're contradicting yourself. It's not a particle in itself. It is information that's sent and carried by a particle
Correct.
to somewhere else.
Correct.
But the thought itself, it's not a particle carrying another particle on that showed us.
Yes, it's not particle itself, but in order to share it with anything, anywhere, to move it from A to B, you need a physical reality to do it. So you need those particles, because otherwise you can't send a signal.
Without the brain, you have no thought.
If we're talking about the typically physical reality, right? We're not touching the non-physical.
No. But you touch with thought. You touch. You come on the border of physical reality with a thought. And a computer wouldn't have existed without the thought of Ada Lovelace in 1840. That there must be a device that can do everything. Without that thought, it wouldn't have existed. So the thought is more important than the device. And now you're starting with the device because you're impressed by the device and you think we are a device, our thoughts are produced by a device, the brains. But what is starting then? And a thought is I think, the border of that first box of reality from the particles, because it's not a particle of thought. And the arithmetic logic, the math logic is not a particle. These are not particles.
Mathematics is not particle.
No,
indeed. It's just the
thought.
calculation, which is a thought. But thought, as we said, in order to be spread around, it needs to be transmitted by particles.
For self-consciousness, you need in this life of bodies, you need a physical brain to be able to have contact with other physical bodies.
Yes.
Bodies.
But we're still talking about only physical reality.
Yeah.
So now, if I want to talk to you or to you,
you need that physical body.
I need that because I need to start speaking, because this is the way we communicate, right?
Yeah.
And in order to speak, I need to transfer some information.
Yeah, you
from
need the
brain to
body.
my mouth, right? So
But
the mouth needs to know how to create the sound and the throat.
Yeah, but you need the body. But what is first? Because you can think the body produces thought, or the thought uses the body to be to have an experience.
Yeah, I know. You go into
So you have two possibilities.
You go into the direction of the everlasting existence or entity or source or God or whatever you call it. Because what might
Yeah, it's obviously going to go there. It's obviously going to go there. It's like having a conversation with Kate about football and only discussing the results on Saturday of the professional football teams. Well, that doesn't tell you much about football, it just tells you about the results. And only one part of the whole subject matter of football is not captured in that. So you cannot capture what is reality just by talking about physical reality in terms of particles. And it's pointless because all the scientists have already done that. I mean, most of us have grown up with physics and biology lessons that actually tell that story. We don't need to discuss that. Or anybody watching this video would also know about particles. So we're trying to educate them in something they already know. I don't know. It's but the crucial point is when you come to that borderline. What comes before particle? What creates particle? And that is closer by the topic of what is reality.
Yeah. If you an example, there is a Italian physician. He wrote some books the last 10 years and is pretty popular, but he don't want to write popular science popular books. And he says in one of his last books, he says quantum physics is really strange, but in all the arithmetic things, it is a reality, but it's not a reality. All the math things, it makes sense in all the math things,
yeah.
But it's not reality. He says. No. Well, that's a strange. So. What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we only looking for thoughts that make sense to us, or are we looking to reality?
Yeah.
What? That's the question.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need safety, and all those one and zeros, they give you safety of a computer. They give you the safety. Then it's fitting, or the math conclusions. Then it's real. But the reality, what you're looking for, is not for the looking for reality, but it's just to be safe in your feeling. What is the world? You want to be, and those symbols, they give you some sort of feeling of safety. So what are we talking about? The feeling of safety, not of reality. So that's the difficult things in first you have to ask people, are you anxious of what happens here?
I think it's just to do with that. It's to do with a particular experience, whether that's a safety experience or
yeah, it's a possible. Safety is only an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it needs particles to have, it needs physical matter to have a physical reality, and that I don't mind.
No,
Understand, because we experience it, and,
No.
and I like the physical reality to experience it. The question is, but is the physical matter, is that real?
But then you have to look at
does that exist apart from thought? Is physical. We experience physical reality. We describe it in terms of physical matter, and it has causes and effects that we all experience. But is that really real?
And that's the question of how to specify what's real or what's not real. How to say that this is real or this is not real.
Well, that's a definition.
How to determine that?
Give us an example. What do you define as real?
Yeah, let me give you the example.
And don't quote the Matrix movie.
No, I'm not using it. No. What I'm
This is a
trying
good
to,
one.
what I would like to let's use this example. We live in the 3 or 4 dimensional world, right? But let's focus on something which is two-dimensional. Let's look at the output of the working machine, which is computer. So in order for you or for me to communicate with the machine, we created a monitor. The monitor is just the two-dimensional reality which shows you the information which computer works on. And it shows you the way that you can understand that with your naked eye. Is this reality real? Is that reality, does this reality exist? Yes, it does. It does exist. It's in this physical world. Is it real? I don't know. Why?
Depends.
Because it depends on the perspective. Why? Because if you look from computer perspective, it's just a flawless number of digits sent over to the screen. And screen has its own sort of sub-processor which lights up particular points on the monitor based on the information received from the motherboard. So for computer, it's just for computer, it's just
same as the clock who doesn't know what time it is.
Exactly, it just does its
Doesn't
job,
mean
and
anything.
this job is created by us, and by
Yeah.
us meaning by thought.
Our thought. Yeah, thought is beginning.
So this is the beginning. So I want to come to this point. Why? Because I still believe what we receive out of this computer is still real, but it's real to us.
Yeah.
Why? Because I can see it with my naked eye. Why? Because my sensor called eye is built the way that I can see it. And why programmers are, and what programmers do in order for us to communicate with the machine, they create the monitor, which is built the way that we can get the information, the way that we can understand the information. So either it's graphical or it's equipped with the audio path as well, or whatever else.
Yeah.
And it's two-dimensional, which means that you can touch it, but you cannot go inside because it doesn't have a depth. But it still exists.
Yeah.
It exists for you. It doesn't exist for the computer. It most likely doesn't exist for the insects walking on the floor right now around us. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does exist.
It does exist.
So that's why it's so difficult to determine what reality is, because even if we look on an example of the fly looks at the world completely different way, but it's still real to this fly what it sees around.
Yeah.
And we see it differently, and every single animal sees that differently. Even human beings are built slightly different. We see, you might be a colorblind or other elements of problems with our sensors. So what does it bring us to? Where does it bring us to? It brings us to the point that we cannot say for sure that this and that is real, in my opinion.
Oh, mine too. I mean, obviously, it's to come to the truth about reality is it's always going to be a story. It's just going to be a story. It's an understanding of something from a particular perspective, and if you cannot imagine a different perspective, you're not going to come to a different story. So it's subjective, and it can be collective, subjective, or individual, subjective. But it's still subjective. It's all subjective because we can never, ever really know. There's always the chance we could be fooling ourselves again.
Yeah, correct.
But you know the two aspects.
Yeah.
That's what you know. The senses aspect and the thought aspect.
Yeah.
Without those two, you won't have any...
Well, the thought, just to clarify, the thought is the non-material, basically.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
I can't see... Mr. Schwab in Holland tries to give it a material aspect, but that's why I don't know what's the reason why he wants to have that aspect. That's all coming from material things. But the thought, for me it's very difficult to see that the thought is any chemical particle. So for me, it's nonsense what he tries to.
Do you know what's his name again?
Schwab.
Schwab.
You have in the all those Daniel Dennett type.
Yeah, I know. What's his full name? Because it's
what's the? I don't know.
Dick.
Dick.
Dick Schwab.
In
Dick
England,
Schwab.
it's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dick Schwab.
it's exactly a good name.
So
for
we
him.
don't get it mixed up with Klaus Schwab, who's in the news at the moment. There's, Dick Schwab is sort of one of these people who think that we don't think.
Mhm.
You know, that the brain creates consciousness, not
Mhm.
the other way around. So he's a forestander of that. He's definitely. I mean, it's if you don't agree with him, then he comes across as laughable. But there's lots of high-ranking philosophers and scientists or experts
They
who
really
also
like.
think
They
that.
really like the thought.
And
No,
people
but
like
we-
Daniel Dennett in America, and who's the other guy? I can't
Richard Dawkins.
Richard Dawkins. I keep forgetting his name because I can't stand him. And a number of those sort of people who are trying to prove that their own thoughts are created by the brain. So they're not even thinking this themselves, but they're trying
No.
to convince you that
It's
you
only-
don't think for yourself, but I do. You know, it's really a joke.
But
It's,
gentlemen, we said at the very beginning we're not going to focus on any experts, right? We
No,
got-
but
but
they're going to
but-
come up.
yeah,
They're going to come
Yeah,
up.
we're
I
only
mean,
talking about our view on the situation on this
Yeah.
world, on this reality,
So
and
we
let's
can
share
do.
this. We
So
can
we
use
can.
the examples of
Yeah.
those people, but let's not use
Yeah.
the words that say nonsense, because who knows? Maybe one of our viewers will call one of us, being-
Well, they can have
having
their opinion
no
and they can
sense.
think about it. And, but I'm putting out my opinion now. It just doesn't make sense. It's illogical to go down that path of trying to prove somebody wrong, to think you're right, while at the same time telling everybody that none of us are thinking anything. It's just
No, that's correct. That's
outright.
something I agree with
So
you.
that is a logical thing.
As long as you think something and you believe in it, it doesn't mean that you have to share it to everybody and force them to believe in the same.
No,
You can't prove it. That's the whole
and
point.
you
You
can't prove
cannot prove it. So
But even if he says nonsense to you or to me or to you, it doesn't mean that he cannot do it. He can do it.
He
as
can
long
do
as
it.
He
It's
doesn't
not even logic.
force anyone else
It's
to believe
free.
in it. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
I'm not
absolutely
going
free.
to force you or anyone of our
And that's the
viewers to
funny
believe
thing
in
is-
anything.
he could be right, and I could be wrong.
And that's what I'm trying
No,
to
but
say. But
it's
that's
not.
what I'm
It's
trying
not
to say.
really. Well, that's a
But
miracle
that-
too. The logic. It's not logic what he tells us.
No, it's not.
Because he tells him the thought is not the real thing, but he thinks about the thought.
Yeah.
And no, it's the physical thing that produces thought, like the body produces sweat. So that's not logical, because he with the thought, the tool of the thought, he tries to explain that the thing he thinks about is the reality. So that's not logical. For me, it's not logical. For me, it's not logical.
But here, let's park here. Look, let's try to understand. Let's try to say that he's maybe okay. Maybe not assume that he's right, but let's say that he's right. Let's compare once again to the technical devices, right? We've got a computer, we've got a program, advanced program, which is the CPU in your head, and it produces so advanced calculation that you can be you can start thinking that you actually create this thought, and that actually you think like your brain thinks in this physical material or physical reality. I'm not saying that I believe in it, and I don't want to even say that I believe or I don't believe. I just consider all kind of options. But this option cannot be completely disqualified, in my opinion. And why? Because as we progress with our technology and we see how fast it goes and what it can do, I consider the option that at some point your brain might be so smart that it might start thinking about itself.